tonight. I've said to several people, what a lovely problem to have to be running out of chairs. I really enjoyed that. We are so glad that you're here. This is the second installment of what we're calling the Live Love Symposium. Last week we heard from Jaime Garcia at Centro de Información talk about immigration issues, and we have upcoming programs on anti-Semitism, anti-bullying, transgender issues, all kinds of things coming up through the end of February. We're very excited about this, and we're so delighted to have each and every one of you here tonight. Just a couple of things on the tables where you came in on either side. There's a lot of information there. We've contacted some of the just a slight sliver of some of the organizations in town that can always use volunteers. And that's one of the things we're hoping for out of this series, is not just to talk, although that's incredibly good, but we want to get people as involved as we possibly can. So please peruse the information that's at either door as you go out, and take the information that you would like to and contact those organizations about helping out in some ways. I know they would always be glad to hear from you. I have to say a couple of things before I introduce Nat. One of the things that I'm thrilled about is that this church, how many of you know this was the very first church in Elgin? Okay, yes. Founded in James Gifford's cabin in 1836. And right off the bat, this church had a social justice emphasis and belief. And early on, this church adopted a resolution that no one would be admitted to the membership if they were a slaveholder. It was not terribly healthy for some of the folks in the church at the time. The saying was that every Congregational church member's home in Elgin during that time period was a stop on the Underground Railroad. That is probably an exaggeration, but not by much. And this church was very actively involved in the Civil Rights Movement back in the 60s, and that's something we're not only proud of, but we're smug about it. Frederick Douglass actually spoke to this church at one point prior to the war between the states. So we have a storied history. But I have to tell you, a few years ago, I was invited to participate in a panel discussion along with Nat on Martin Luther King Day with a youth program that was held over at the center to talk about our different perspectives on the Civil Rights Movement, both of us growing up in the South. He growing up in Alabama, me growing up in Georgia. And I really wish that I had spoken first. Not only because he puts me in the shade in terms of a speaker, but also because this was a man who was on the front lines. Growing up in Birmingham like he did, and I was so aware by the end of that program what a sheltered, lily-white world I lived in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. So I just have all the respect in the world for this man, and I'm so delighted he's here. Nat Edmonds has a bachelor's degree from Xavier University in Louisiana. He's a graduate of the Executive Management Program from Cornell University in Ithaca, New York in 2010. Received an honorary Doctor of Theology from Judson University. He's also a certified family counselor, served several years of experience in marriage, family, and teen counseling. He was licensed to the ministry in 1993 at the Lincoln Heights Baptist Church in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was ordained to the ministry on April 30th, 1995, and was installed as pastor of Second Baptist Church here in Elgin in 2000. Let me look at my notes here. He's retired from the Alcoa Aluminum Company as Vice President of Sales and Marketing in December of 2002. You know, it makes it sound like you couldn't hold down a job. He was the recipient of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Humanitarian Award for the City of Elgin and the Distinguished Volunteer Award for the U46 School District. He's married to Christine Dargan Edmond, has two daughters, grandson and 4 granddaughters, but I got you beat because I got 6 of them. So without further ado, let's welcome Reverend Nathaniel.
I know we're not in church. Y'all say amen. Amen. Y'all knew I was a preacher when you invited me in. Amen. Let me do a couple of things up front. First, the U.S. Congressman, Raj Kasham. Thank you. Always, he told me just call him Raj. All right, so I just call him Raj. Well, anyway, I was at his place on Friday. For a conference, and he invited some of us in to share with us, and he asked me if he could run with me tonight. And we are so honored that he is on his way. He's going to come by here. All right, they've called me 3 times a day to make sure. One of his assistants, Melissa's already here, so he's on his way. Now, I understand protocol, and if the U.S. Congressman come in, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. And we're going to allow him to come in as our congressman, and then I'll finish up whatever I'm trying to do. Amen? Is that okay with y'all? I hope so, because that's what we're going to do. I cleared it with Pastor Donahue, and he said that's fine in his house. Amen. All right, we're going to talk about racism in America. Another thing I've got to do, Pastor, I knew a lot of us was coming, so we brought you a check for your food, amen? All right, we brought you a check. I told them, don't let me run over there by myself, and they didn't do it, so I thought I'd bring some money for you, amen? I have a hard time with this staying up, so I'll put that there, and I'll go from the slide presentation. One other thing, there's a young man by the name, no, he's not a young man, he's an elderly man, white guy, by the name of Ron Alberts. Ron makes these beautiful little crosses, and he brings them to our church by the box load. And Ron called me on Thursday. He saw in the newspaper that I was going to be here sharing this afternoon. So he brought me a box of 100 crosses. And they have a sweet little poem inside. And I brought a box for you. Mr. Orland here and our ushers will have them for you after this service. Amen. Please take up a cross from Ron. Racism in America. Where do we go from here? Thank you, Pastor Donahue, first of all, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm excited and I'm honored to be a part of this symposium series, and I believe it'll be a blessing for our entire community. Now, thank you for all of those who've taken time out of your busy schedule, and I want to thank you, Pastor, for that kind and generous and warm introduction. It reminds me a little bit of this hobo gentleman from New York, and this guy had a little too much to drink one night, and he stumbled out of the bar and fell into the back seat of a cab. Told the cab driver to drive. The driver said, "Where do you want to go?" He said, "Just drive." Drive around New York City for about an hour. The driver turns and said, "Sir, where do you want to go?" He said, "Just drive." He said, "Man, are you afraid I can't pay my bill?" Cab driver said, "Man, this meter is running, and I know you can't pay this bill." He said, "Well, how much is it?" He said, "It's $150 right now." He said, "Well, back up $149. I want to tell Pastor Donahue, back up a little bit. Man, you're putting me awfully high. I don't profess to be the righteous authority on racism. I am a product of the 60s. I do know racism firsthand by experience. Amen. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up not being able to drink water out of certain fountains and go to certain restrooms. I grew up in that. My parents struggled to send us, 4 of us, to Catholic school because separate schools were not equal. In fact, the black schools in my neighborhood, they received books that the white students had disregarded and passed down, and the pages were torn out, and they were scribbling through the books, all right? So my parents struggled to send the 4 of us to Catholic school. I was in church the morning 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed. We had a friend, my mom knew Mr. McNair, so Denise McNair was a friend of our family. Wow. And on that Sunday morning, they rushed all of us in my little church, St. John Baptist Church, down to the basement like this. And then they rushed us out of the church because the rumor was there were other bombs planted around the city. And we didn't know if our little church would be the next one to be bombed. So I'm not an authority, but I know racism. I cannot tell you in words how it feels to pay your money, get on the city bus, put your money in the bus receptacle. Then you had to get off that bus, go to the back door of the bus, and get back on the bus. And even then, you had to stand behind a yellow line that only had about 10 seats. And if there were empty seats in the front of the yellow line, we still had to stand stacked like dirty clothes in the back of the bus. In high school, y'all, I rode the city bus because I was going to high school, and in high school we would be standing on the bus stop. I remember it as clear as day, and the bus slowed down one day. And the children from Inslee High School, the white high school, they got on the bus before the children from Holy Family, the black high school, got on the bus. And the bus driver slowed down. And all of the white kids spat out the window on us. And then the bus driver pulled off without picking us up. I know just a little bit about racism. But God is so good, y'all, that one day he reversed the bus route. And we got on the bus first. Now, let me be honest, we didn't spit out the bus window. But I tell you what we did do. I'm not as saved as I was then as I am now. We sat one child to a seat. And they would not sit next to us. So they had to stand up all the way home. And that's how I handled it. I witnessed my mother. My mother got on our church bus because the church was the heart of the African American community. For 7 Mondays in a row, my mother got on the bus and went downtown to register to vote. And 6 times they turned her away for different reasons. But on the 7th time, and that's why I love the Bible, 7 in biblical terms mean completeness. And my mama was allowed to register to vote the 7th Monday that she went downtown. Now that's why, and Ms. Moeller is here, I have no patience with folks who don't vote. I tell folks, if you're electing a dog catcher, I'm going to vote to see who won't catch the dog. I see that my congressman is here. I'm going to stop and allow him to come. Then I'll get into our presentation. I just call him Raja. Congressman, won't you come forward? Thank you so much.
Good evening. Praise be to the Lord. I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much to Pastor Donahoe and the First Congregational Church for hosting this event. Can you give them a big round of applause? Thank you, Pastor Nate, for having me here. I've been catching some dogs in Congress. January 3rd. And on that day, my second son, Vikram, said to me, "So today is your swearing-in day, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And he said, "What bad words will you be saying today?" Well, tonight is not a night for bad words, it's a night for good words. Words of coming together, words of praise, words of celebration, and words of gratitude from me to you for allowing me just a few minutes of your precious time to visit with you and talk about what's going on right now and where do we go from here. And so, that being said, I would like to observe the 3 rules of public speaking. Be short, be sweet, and be gone. And so I just have 3 points that I want to make. The first point is this: I'm so honored to join Pastor Nate. He is a pillar of our community. He's somebody that is a role model and inspiration to all of us, and that includes me. Can you give him a big round of applause? I can't hear you. Now, as you know, Dr. King's favorite verse from Amos was, "Let justice run down like water, and righteousness like a mighty stream." And that pursuit of justice and righteousness has been at the center of Pastor Nate's life. And that's why I'm so honored to be able to collaborate with him and all of you in the pursuit of justice and righteousness. Now, the question before us tonight that Pastor Nate has put forward is, where do we go from here? And Pastor Nate can answer that question a lot better than I can based on his wisdom and experience and all that he has seen in his life. But let me just put forward my short answer to that question. It boils down to this: I think we have to move forward and we have to commit to service. So I want to segue to my second point, which is moving forward. As I look at where our country stands today, on so many questions of civil rights and where it feels like things are going, I'm reminded of the words of Abraham Lincoln. "I walk slowly, but I never walk backward." Many of us may feel that our country may be walking backward right now, or slipping backward and away from the best parts of itself. That may be the case at the moment, but we still have to keep pushing forward. Are you with me on that? Yes. We keep pushing forward. And we must commit ourselves to that creed of our founding documents that all men and women are created equal. Yes. Equality is at the bedrock of America. You've heard of the term evangelical Christians, and I respect them. I happen to be an evangelical American. From my bully pulpit in the United States Congress, I preach every day. Not as well as Pastor Nate, but I preach every day the values of freedom, liberty, equality, hard work, and prosperity. And if you believe in those values, you are an American. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter whether you work with your hands or you work with a computer. It doesn't matter how you dress, how you pray, whom you love, and it certainly doesn't matter how many letters there are in your name. There are 18 in mine. All that matters is this. All that matters is this. Do you live a life of character? Do you raise your children right? Do you work hard and play by the rules? And do you give something back to your community and country? Because if you do, you are an American. It doesn't, at the end of the day, that is what is so important to reaffirm to all of our brothers and sisters in our nation, especially after last week. Are you with me? I segue to my third point, which is this. Dr. King dedicated his life to justice and equality And he died for that commitment. But even with his ideals, he would never have had the impact that he did without a commitment to service. And that path is open to all of us here in this room. As Dr. King said, you don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You don't have to know anything about Aristotle and Plato, and you don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity. Dr. King knew that service isn't about your background or your education. It's about much more than that. He taught us all that what you need to serve is this. You need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love.
Yeah.
A soul generated by love. That path is not an easy one. I grant you that. But we can all take it.
That's right.
And that is what I would close by urging all of us to do tonight. Let us commit to a path of love toward all of our fellow men and women, because if we do, we can make America a better place.
Yes.
So I close with my favorite saying, which is that yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today's a gift. And that's why we call it the present. I'm so honored and blessed to be able to share just a few minutes of your precious time to talk about such an important question as where do we go from here, but also to celebrate the fact that we're doing it, and we're doing it together. It's cold outside, but I feel warmth here. I feel a lot of warmth, and I feel a lot of love. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless Pastor Nate, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Thank you.
He's going to go right out the door. Amen. That's what they do in Congress. So as I was saying, I really don't profess to be an authority. I'm just a witness. And Pastor, I prepared a presentation here because I believe that the first thing we must do is face racism.
Amen.
And I didn't come here. Hear me. I did not come to put white folks on a guilt trip. And I didn't come to excuse and accuse anybody.
Right.
Nor did I come to make black folks feel good about where we are in life.
Amen.
I'm just grateful for the opportunity for all of us to dialogue. So shall we start?
Yes.
Racism in America. You have a copy of the slides in your handout. I'm going to walk through them rather expeditiously. But since I took the time to put the PowerPoint together, we're going to walk through the PowerPoint. We have additional copies. Thank you so much, Pastor Donahue, for making additional copies. The first thing we got to do is we got to establish a definition, okay? So that we're all thinking the same way in the same terms. So let's first establish a definition. Racism is discrimination based on the biological difference between folks. The biological difference. That's racism, all right? Racism involves prejudice and discrimination based upon perceived ideas about the biological difference between folks. It involves the assumption that people of different races deserve different kinds of treatment within a given society. Now, whatever we talk about tonight, we're going to come back to that as our definition. So stay focused. It's not about that. It's about the definition. Racism also includes stereotyping. That's a major issue. Racism includes unconscious prejudice and stereotypes. Now we hear that term and we don't understand what it means all the time, so let me break it down like a fraction. This means to make a generalization about someone based on their race or ethnicity. For example, all white folks do X, and all black folks do Y. That is inherently racist. Anytime you make that as a definition, that's racism. That's what we mean when we talk about stereotypes. Now, as I clear myself, no one likes to be labeled. So our purpose tonight is not to point fingers. I came to tell y'all, don't call me the N-word.
Amen.
I ain't scared of nobody in here. And I know some of my white counterparts in here saying, don't call me racist.
Amen.
And my few Hispanic folks that don't use the S word on me either. But note this understanding, y'all. It's hard for the privileged to admit that we're privileged. That's for white folks. But also, it's hard for the underprivileged to admit that sometimes we lack putting forth the effort. So always go back to the definition. I'm having fun. I don't know about y'all. All right. If we're going to look at racism, let's look at it in terms of some categories. First, let me deal with the job market. And on all my slides, when I make a statement, you'll see the source of from which it came, so that you know I just didn't sit down last night and write this stuff up, okay? Employers are less likely to hire job applicants with a black name. Their resumes get tossed before they even start the interviews. Now, my name should not make a difference. But some Shaquilas and Shaniquas don't make it to the interview. Because we take their name and we eliminate them. Job applicants with African American names have to apply to 50% more jobs just to get a call back. And that's according to the Odyssey research form. Not Nat Edmond, all right? In 2015, y'all, the GPD, that's gross domestic product, per capita for white folks was $13,000, for Asian $13,008, a little higher, compared to blacks having $11,900. That's according to the movement statistics. Now, education was supposed to be the great equalizer. But is it? Black persons who achieve educational goals are still compensated less than white folks. Average white high school dropouts earn more than some black college graduates. And that's according to the Economic Policy Institute. Let's look at unemployment. Black unemployment is consistently twice that of white. Again, according to the Economic Policy Institute. You may not be able to read the slides, and you may not be able to see the numbers on your slide, all right? But in the category of no high school diploma, 96.6% of African Americans are unemployed. So when our boys and girls drop out of high school, they're destined for failure.
Yes.
Now, 6.9 or 7% of white kids with no diploma are unemployed. Now, a high school diploma, 9.6% of African Americans are unemployed, 4.6% of whites. Some college, Dr. Coleman, that would include AA or associate degrees. Some college, 7.4% of color, all right, are unemployed, 4.0 for white. Now, the national average across all lines, unemployment is at a 5.7% rate, unemployment rate nationally. With a bachelor degree or higher, 4.1% of people of color are unemployed compared to 2.4% of whites. So even the great equalizer, education, has not always worked in our country. African American who were recent college graduates face unemployment rate twice those of recent white college graduates. And that's according to the National Labor Statistics. Let's look at unemployment rates. Overall, the country said we've got low unemployment. It's down to 4.9%, and that is great. For whites, it's 4.3. For Latinos, it's 5.8. Asians, 3.6. But African Americans, 8.4. Now, there are a number of reasons and a whole lot of research that goes behind all of these numbers, but I just want you to scratch your head and say, something's wrong. All right, education. Let's look at the education system. All right, now let's look at the education system. Great equalizer. My dad told me, boy, go to college, go to college, go to college. That's how we beat our way out of poverty, all right?
That's true.
Now, teachers in our public school systems use disciplinary measures on black students too often. According to the Odyssey report, not me.
That's true.
Black students of any age are 3 times more likely than white students to be suspended from school. 34% of students that are expelled from school are African American. 34%. Now let me watch it. Watch it. Y'all not gonna believe this. 18% of preschoolers are black. Of that 18% of preschoolers that are black, 50% are suspended.
Wow.
And these are our babies. You mean to tell me you can't deal with a 3 or 4-year-old? The solution is to send them home and suspend them? School funding. Now we all know the school funding is tied to the property tax revenue, right? Amen. So school fund, 1 out of 4 African American families, all right, 1 out of 6 Hispanic families live in high poverty neighborhoods. That's compared to 1 in 13 in white America, all right? So when you get out to the poor area of the inner city of Chicago and you compare that to the North Shore, there's going to be a difference in the funding, all right? That's why New Trier has high, all right, grade levels and test scores, because they've got the latest equipment, the smallest classrooms, and the largest revenue. All right, let's go to law enforcement. Now, there's been a lot of talk about law enforcement in African American years. There's been a lot of discussion. Well, what does it really mean? Law enforcement are more likely to use force against African Americans. That's a fact. It's stated by the Department of Justice report. Department of Justice reported. All right, now law enforcement, on balance, treat blacks differently from whites according to the data that they gather from the 10 major cities across this country. They say that we're treated differently. African Americans are 2 times more likely to be searched during a vehicular stop, but are 26% less likely to have contrabands found during the search. That's according to the Department of Justice.
Yes.
In San Francisco, y'all, blacks are 6% of the population. They account for 15% of those that are pulled over by the police. Now, hear me. I don't see this chief in here. A good report. The stats for Elgin, Illinois are not the same. We examine, a group of us, we meet with the chief and his staff. We examine the stops, the tickets, and the warnings for Elgin. The stops, the tickets, and the warning. Warning meaning every officer who stops you has the option of writing the ticket or giving you a warning. When we examine the numbers in Elgin, they reflected the population in Elgin. So I give Chief Swoboda and his staff, full credit for that. Unarmed black men are 7 times more likely to die by police gunfire. That's according to the Washington Post. 7 times. African Americans were twice as likely to be arrested and 4 times as likely to experience some force during an encounter with the police department. Now, here's the caveat, y'all. Here's the caveat. Write this down. Write this down. Circle it on your page. Officers in situations do not respond with force because they want to kill black folks. Police officers do not get up in the morning saying, I think I'm going to shoot me a black person today. That is not their intent. But here's the point. The point is that they overact and overreact because they are subconsciously affected by media stereotypes, by police department cultures, or other internal biases. They simply overreact. They don't wake up in the morning with the intent, all right, of killing African Americans. Y'all with me so far? Let's look at the criminal justice system. People of color, that means black and Hispanic, make up about 30% of the U.S. population at this point. All right, 14% African American, 16% Hispanic, all right? But they account for 60% of those that are in prison tonight. Are we that much off in what we do and how we conduct ourselves? All right, 1 in every 15 African American and 1 in every 36 Hispanic men are incarcerated compared to 1 in every 106 white men. The worst part is, it starts early. Students of color face harsher punishment in school than their white peers, leading to higher numbers of them being incarcerated early. Don't stop there. Don't stop there. Go now, go. Youth have higher rates of juvenile incarceration, more likely to be sentenced to adult prison. African American youth are 16% of the population, the youth population. 37% of their cases are moved to the criminal court. And 58% of the African American youth are sent to adult prisons. Just make you say, something gotta be wrong with that. Doesn't escape us. African American women, our sisters, are 3 times more likely than white sisters to be incarcerated. Once convicted, African American offenders receive longer sentences compared to white offenders. All right, let me show you. According to the U.S. Sentencing Commission, they reported that in the federal system, black offenders receive sentences that are 10% longer than white offenders for the same crime.
Amen. It's true.
Now, how does that back into the community? Ms. Moeller? The voter laws prohibit persons who committed felonies to vote in America. So in essence, 13% of the African American men in this country are denied the right to vote. Here's my question, Ms. Moeller. You don't elected official I can pick on in here. I know Ms. Moeller, we have a very great relationship. Why shouldn't a person convicted, serve their time, free back in society, be able to vote for the president of the country? Why shouldn't a person be able to vote for Congress and vote for the mayor and vote for Ms. Moeller? If they've served their time, why shouldn't they be able to vote? Now, some states, including the state of Illinois, bars people on certain convictions from working in domestic health service industry, such as nursing, child care, home health care. Now, I know of a real life experience. I have a young lady in my church. A young lady in my church who had a felony conviction. She went back to school. She did an online program through a university in California. All All right, she got her nursing, all right, CNA. She found a job and went to work, and she was not doing patient care. She was keeping records. And they went in and walked her off the job. That's not the worst of it. A month later, guess what? The federal government is asking her to pay back her student loans. Because she paid for a college out of California who didn't know the law in Illinois, she can't get a job. Something's wrong with that. And that's a young lady from my church. African Americans represent 12% of the monthly drug users, but they comprise 32% of the persons arrested for drug possession. Now let's look at the disparities in sentencing for crack and powder cocaine. All right, crack cocaine carries a mandatory 5 years for 5 grams. You know why? Because it's cheap, and that's for black folks. Black folks got caught up in the crack epidemic, all right, where white folks were using powder cocaine because y'all had more money. For heroin, all right, it takes 500 grams to get a 5-year sentence. All right, for 5 grams of crack. Now, no drug is good. Please don't misread me. No drugs are good, all right? But during the crack epidemic, y'all, the strategy was lock up black offenders, and we will build more prisons. Right now, y'all, there's an opiate epidemic today, and the strategy today is more treatment and more money. And the same supposed to be United States of America. The United States spent $81 billion on correction, and that was in 2012. That's the latest stat I could find. Now let's be honest tonight. We are a country divided over race. By that I mean 87% of African America say black folks face a lot of discrimination. Only 49% of white folks, according to the Public Religion Institute, said that black folks are discriminated against. We think, 87% of us think, that there's a lot of discrimination. Only half of white America, all right, says that there's discrimination. Now, I struggle with this one. But the research says that there's a Trump factor. More than 6 in 10 Americans, 63%, say the level of hatred and prejudice in the United States has increased since Trump was elected president. All right? That was according to the Winnipeg University research, all right? Now, understand me, let me be very clear tonight. I respect the office of the president. I respect the office of the president. It seems, though, to me, I didn't say he did, I said it seems to me that he has a loose and liberal relationship with the truth. I didn't accuse him. And I'll tell you, I'm praying. And just when I think prayer is working, something else gets tweeted. And I have to start praying harder all over here. Now, with what happened last week, and we'll get to that in the question and answer period, I'm sure somebody's going to ask me about it, and I'll give you my opinion on it. I'm going to ask if we just apply the definition where we started. Compare his statements on Thursday. Something is wrong. Because when you take, I may as well deal with it now. When you take Haiti in African countries, the only thing they have in common, black folks. They're on opposite sides of the world. I'm sure it's going to come back. Y'all going to ask me a question about it, right? Let's talk about it. Workplace equality, all right? 81% of whites said that they think that black folks have as good a chance as white folks to get any kind of job you want. 81% of white folks truly believe that. Or at least they said that. All right? 54% of black folks said they don't have a good chance of getting a good job even when they're qualified for the job. Now that's according to a CNN poll, all right? Now here's something I just got to share with y'all. And don't shoot me, I'm just a messenger. Who are the poor folks? Now, according to the Department of Agriculture, SNAP recipients, y'all know what SNAP is? Yeah. SNAP is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly called food stamps. That's called SNAP now. We didn't want to call it food stamp, we call it SNAP. Who receives SNAP? Watch this. 40% of the recipients of SNAP are white folks. 26% are black, 10% Hispanic, 2% Asian, and 1.2% Native American. You know what I tell some of my white friends, Pastor, you know what I tell them? I said, some of y'all can't afford to be Republicans. You running around here and like you got money and you are as poor as I am, you can... All right, let me go. The discussion gets to reverse racism, all right? Now watch this. Almost 6 in 10 white in America, 57% to be exact, and 2/3 of white working class Americans, 66%, believe discrimination against whites is as big of a problem as discrimination against blacks and other minorities. That was the impetus behind the Trump movement. Working class white Americans felt that they had lost something that they needed to gain back. And they concluded that some of it is the source of the political environment today. White folks feel like they lost something during the Obama administration. All right. Now, I'm not going to talk about him, but I could tell you. All right, I could tell you. I'm not going to talk about him. But I got to tell you, I struggle why folks are so anti now that he's out of office. He only got us out of 2 wars, saved Chrysler, saved the banking industry, saved Ford, saved General Motors. All right, got 9 million folks this year who never had health insurance have health insurance. And all I hear is criticism. I struggle with that, y'all. I struggle with that. And I sit on a hospital board, y'all know that. I sit on advocates, not only Sherman, but advocate the system board. Here's the news. The folks who are getting health care coverage now, they're not new folks. These folks didn't jump off the moon saying, I want health care. They've been here all along. They were going to hospitals and going to emergency rooms, and guess what? Sherman was getting no money for it. So you wonder why you go to Sherman and a bare aspirin costs you $18. That's why. Because folks were going there and they had to be treated. The church, Pastor. The church. The church. Mainline denominational churches continue to struggle with diversity. First congregation is exception. UCC churches as a whole are exceptions. All right? Baptist churches, we struggle. The 8 o'clock hour on Sunday morning is still the most segregated hour in this country.
All right.
But we serve in the same God. We go to our church, you go to your church, all of us sing hallelujah. Amen. It's still the most segregated hour. Now, I got to admit, mega non-denominational churches are doing a better job at diversity. That's the Willow Creeks of the world and the Hearts of the world and the Life Changers of the world. They're doing a better job, all right, in diversity. But there's some comfort, y'all, in traditions and styles. we're not going to change our style, all right, just to draw a different race. Let me tell y'all something. And yeah, I get personal. African American churches are proud of their heritage. Second Baptist Church is 151 years old.
Yes.
Founded by a group of ex-slaves. Brought to Elder from Franklin County, Alabama in 1866. We are proud of our heritage.
Yes.
God is blessing us. We continue to grow. We believe whosoever will, let them come.
Yes.
But please understand me, we are not chasing diversity. We don't have a white recruitment strategy. We have a let whosoever will come strategy. You want to praise God with us? Come on. Sister Denise is there quite often. All right? But don't say, well, I'm a come, but y'all going to change our music. We ain't changing our music. We are proud of our heritage, y'all. And then let me ego trip just for a moment. God has been good to us. According to our most recent audit, we sit on about $7.4 million campus. All right, we got a budget of over $1 million that we manage every year. All right, we are not hurting. God is blessing us. All right, so we don't need to go and pursue just to pursue. I probably said more than I should have there, but okay. Opportunities for change, Pastor. Then we're going to go to question and answer. All right, tonight, this forum is what breeds opportunities. All right. Tonight, I hope that no one feels accused. I hope that we can have some open discussion, and I hope that we can disagree on some issues and agree on some other issues, but move forward, as the congressman said, all right? We have a great relationship. Pastor Katie is here with the Church of the Brethren. On the fourth Sunday of this month, we do an exchange. We do a caravan. I'll do 8 o'clock service at Second Baptist. We jump in the cars. We drive across the river. There's sometimes they let us across the river. No. we drive across the river. I will preach over there at their 9:30 service. Our choir will sing over there. We'll caravan back across. Sister Katie, Reverend Pastor Katie, will preach at Second Baptist, all right? And it is the longest running standing fellowship that we have at Second Baptist Church. This is the Church of the Brethren. If we're going to make a difference, we got to start. So this year, now here's the thing with Second Baptist. Y'all don't know this yet, but I'm going to tell you. Deacon McCutcheon, don't throw anything. On the second Sunday in February this year, I'm taking our praise and worship leaders with me, and I'll be at Fox Valley Church. All right, and that's on a Sunday morning. Now, here's the challenge, all right? I like preaching at Second Baptist on Sunday, but I'm going up there, y'all. And I'm going to do both of their services. I'm going to do their 9 o'clock service, and I'm going to do their 11 o'clock service. But I'm going to be anxious to see what's going on at F.C.C. You know, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, for the last 16 years, we've been a guest at Judson University for their Martin Luther King celebration. My choir will be singing over there, and I'll be preaching at Judson University on tomorrow morning. All right. Now, how do we get there, Pastor? How do we get there? This is going to help us. The only way we're going to get there is through love. All right. John 3:16 said, "For God so loved the world." That's how we're going to get there. John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone will lay down his life for his friend." Matthew 5:43-45. Jesus says, "You've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemy, pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and send rains also on the righteous." Mark 12:30 says, "And ye shall love the Lord your God, all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And the second commandment is like unto it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no greater commandment than these. One more, John 13:34 says, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this, by your love, by your sharing of love, all people will know that you are my disciples. If you have love one for another. Thank you so much for having me. Let's talk a little bit. I'll ask any questions you have. Pastor, this is where we go into question and answers. All right, you got questions I may or may not have answered. But you can ask any question you so desire. Yes, sir. And if you don't mind, if you'll just stand and kind of shout out your name.
Sure, I'm John Wilkins. I'm interested in the racist socialization of African American and Hispanics, non-whites, going into the police department. And has it been looked at how much, if any, difference there is in the perpetration of law enforcement on citizen violence that we've seen so much of, and it's been very visible with African Americans being one. You see
Yes. Through the national stats, okay, that we recorded here, African Americans are 7 times more likely to just be killed. All right. Now we looked specifically at the city of Elgin. I did not look at the surrounding neighboring communities, but we looked at the city of Elgin. And in the city of Elgin, the number of tickets issued, for example, was proportionate to the population by population. In other words, white folks got as many as white folks supposed to get. Hispanics were not outnumbered. They got about proportionate to their population. And African Americans got about proportionate to their population. That was here in the city of Elgin. The city has all kinds of stats. The city and the state keep stats on every stop is logged, the resolution of that stop, so you can pull that information at any time. And Anna Talley over at Elgin Police Department, she sat down with us and we went through those stats because we demanded to see those stats. And it wasn't just me, it was me and Margaret Klein, Rabbi Margaret, who will be here next week to present as well. So here in Elgin, we checked it.
Yeah. But what I was really looking at, where you have black officers, okay, to what extent do they take up the same damn heads? You see,
I can't.
So they end up being perpetrators themselves.
Yeah, I can't quote stats on those because I don't want to mislead you.
I understand.
All right, now there is a blue code. All right, that many of us talk about. All right, so and let me tell you something. That's not far-fetched. Because how many school teachers we got here? A lot of time, all your school teachers act like school teachers. Y'all don't want to talk to me now. All right, so I wouldn't be surprised if many police officers act like police officers.
Yeah.
And I defined it in my slide. You go back and say it's based on what? Police culture. The culture in the department can dictate, all right, how it's governed. All right, but I don't have specific stats, sir. All right, so I wouldn't attempt to do it. Now, are we treated differently? All right, at the same outing, at the same meeting as we were going through all of this, I'll tell you that I try not to speed often. I can't say I'm never guilty, all right, but I will tell you that on a Saturday, leaving church around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going through East Dundee all right, and I'm going up 31, and she stops me, and she pulls me over, and I'm not dressed like this. I've got a skull cap pulled down over my ears because it's winter, and the thing that bothered me was 3 other cars pulled up behind her. What am I gonna do? Now, I will tell you, I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, I drive a Mercedes.
White Mercedes.
I had a white Mercedes. And for 3 cars, and what I told Chief Swoboda, and I told the chief in West Dundee, East Dundee, my concern is one of my members passed by. They think you guys are hurting me. And one of them stopped, and now we got a mess. I'm not sure. And at that same meeting, a white male stood up and he said, guess what? I got a whole lot of tickets. And they never called another car, just the one guy writing me my ticket. But I had 3 cars lined up behind me, all right, to write me a ticket. Now that's racism. I know that's not. That's an incident. No, that's racism that I experienced, that I can report on. And it hit the newspaper. All right, they did an article on it. All right, and the chief in Dundee said, well, she was a new officer, and it's common to give a new officer some backup. 3 car loads. That's the kind of stuff that happens every day. All right. Any other questions for me? Yes, sir.
How open are the realtors in Elgin to people of color coming to them for assistance in purchasing a home?
I don't know. That's called redlining.
Yeah.
I don't know the stats. I know that in 2nd B, we've got about 4 realtors who are in our church body, and I don't know how many homes they're selling. They seem to be making pretty good money, all right, but whether they're redlining and whether folks get redlined to east side. In Elgin, you had a real problem between east side and west side. All right, east side is the old traditional side, and that's my side. All right, that's what, we're as far east as you go in Elgin. In fact, we're on the Elgin line. In fact, every time we buy a piece of property, Elgin extends its line. You know that, right? All right, so we're as far east as you can go. But when you go west, all right, in the far west, all right, now we do have some members, all right, who live in the far west. We have some members out in Thornwood. I'll tell you, we are a blessed fellowship, and we make no apologies about it. We're a blessed fellowship, all right. We have mothers on welfare, and we have executive VPs of major corporations. And my biggest job is when you sit in church, you don't know the difference. We're all God's children, all right? But I'll tell you, in churches, you need folks with some resources. Don't be talking to me like that. You need some folks. It takes resources to drive ministries. And you got to have ministries to draw people who have resources. I've got to have resources if I'm going to have young African-American professionals who bring their children there. I've got to have daycare, and I've got to have child care, and I've got to have programs for their young people, all right? So that's a long answer to not answer. I don't know the stats on redlining, but that could be a major issue, all right? And I know there's an east-west thing in Elgin, and I'm not sure it's all based on the poverty rate. Laura probably knows better than I do. I tell you one thing, though. I'm working on a project with Laura Boat, all right, a brand new project that will be coming, all right, has to do with the old Larkin Center, all right, and I tell you what, folks are going to have to show their real color on this, yes. All right, because anytime you talk about affordable housing, folks start thinking about slum housing. There's a huge difference between affordable housing and slum housing. And the project that's going to be proposed for the Larkin Center, which looks like a rundown old raggedy house right now, which is what it is. But we're bringing a project there with single-family homes and apartment complexes, 3 different sizes, and not all low income, but a mixture of income, all right, and we're going to see how this community feels about affordable housing. And I'm working on that project with Laura and some others from Fox Valley. Friends, yes. Yes, I'm sorry?
What happened Thursday? Last week Thursday.
What happened last Thursday?
Last week.
With Trump. What he said.
Well. Please understand me. Pastor Donahue, I've been reading. And there are two books. One by a guy by the name of Randy Alcorn. All right, Randy Alcorn. And the other one is by a guy, last name is Wolf and Merchant. All right. And it talks about evangelicals and the president. And why and how the current president captured the heart of supposedly evangelicals. Now, I will tell you that I have struggled with some of my evangelical friends, and I'm looking at Dave because he struggled with me, who, in supporting and lining up behind the president, it appears to me that we went against everything we professed to believe in.
Amen.
We took a man who was as far from what we talked about being Christ-like, and we gave him our support. Now, I'm not saying that Hillary was the best choice in the world, but usually when somebody applies for a job, you look at the resume. The resume is usually indicative of whether or not they can do that particular job. Well, if you look at his resume, I see nothing that implies that he would be able to run the country. Never elected to anything, never responsible, because you make money in your daddy's company. Don't qualify you to run the country. So for evangelicals, both of these books, Pastor Parrish said evangelicals were so concerned about what happened during the Obama administration with things like the LGBT movement. All right, that they were going to correct that, all right, as evangelicals by going to support him because they felt she was too close to the same kind of movements. But, hear me, Barack Obama, and I tell our congregation this all the time, he was president of the country. He was not pastor of the country. Barack had to be governed by the laws of the United States of America. And the law said that all men are created equal. So he had to enforce the laws of the country, all right? So that's, when you talk about the Haitians and you use a derogative term, I think that's beneath the presidency of the United States. All right? I will tell you, I gotta go fast, but I'll tell you this. When I lived in Miami, Florida, my real estate partner name was Marie Deson. Marie was a Haitian. Marie had 2 adult sons, both were college graduates. Her husband's name was Jacques Deson. He owned an import-export business. They paid taxes, they owned a home, they educated their children, and those are the folks that he was you cannot make those kinds of generalizations based on biological differences if you go back to the initial definition that we had. Now, did I call him a racist? No. I did. But let me tell y'all something, and I'm going to leave on this one. If it walks like a duck, it waddles like a duck, and it quacks like a duck,
know, as preachers, we're supposed to have something to say on every occasion. But I got nothing to say other than amen. And you're right about those of us in the main line still struggling with diversity. I was born, raised, educated, and initially ordained a Southern Baptist. And the things that have happened in that denomination over the last 30 years just break my heart. And so I finally jumped ship in the United Church of Christ. But I, in some ways, have just swapped one set of issues for another set of issues. And I would love to dialogue with you about some of those things. I really feel that an awful lot of the evangelical support for Trump and his agenda really is in some ways the religious component of the white men in this country feeling like they have lost their ascendancy and their dominance. And the church in the United States feels like it's lost its premier place. And so we lash out at somebody. But anyway, I'll quit preaching, going to meddle in here. But again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you again to Sherry Maxson, who has done so much to put all this together. Absolutely, yes. Give her Sherry. Thanks to Rich Wagner, our chef, all of the volunteers who have been helping him, all of those who have done so many things. Like I said last week, I'm not going to start naming too many names because I'll leave somebody out. But this has been a labor of love so far, and it's just beginning. Next Sunday night, we have Rabbi Margaret Frisch-Klein from Congregation Knesset Israel. I've had it on the tip of my tongue. And she will be here talking about the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States over the last few years. And so we got another great program next week. Invite your friends and neighbors. All y'all come back. We'd love to be able to have to move this out up into the sanctuary or something because of the response. So thank you for being here. We'll see you next week. Amen.